Good morning, Breakfast with Bacon fans. I have a very good show for you. It's quite somber, but we always are going to end it in a good way. Basically, how are we going to change the culture, things that are happening? Because my guest today is Rebecca Kiessling. She's a pro-life lawyer. She's an activist. She was conceived in rape and speaks out in across the nation, actually across the world, about the value of an unborn child, the value of a born human being. So I could talk so much more about this, but let me quickly get to Rebecca and let's get going. Rebecca, thank you so much for making the time to be on my show today. It just means the world to me.
Well, thank you for having me.
Rebecca, let me ask you, why did you get into pro-life law?
Well, I wanted to be an attorney since I was about 10, and I saw this movie, Paul Newman, The Verdict, and he was kind of a hero. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to be a hero. When I was in high school, I remember women in my community, I was raised Jewish, and so these Jewish women would ask me what I wanted to be when I grow up, and I'd say a lawyer, and they'd say, oh, like a feminist. And I asked, well, what's a feminist? And they said, oh, it's a woman who fights for women's rights, help make women stronger. And I liked being strong. I used to lift weights. I was an athlete and I was bold and I
And
was
you're a
like,
woman?
yeah, yeah. So I'm like, sure, yeah, like a feminist. And then I began to hear that feminists support abortion. And in high school, I recall thinking, like, what on earth does killing babies have to do with being a strong woman? Like, that just didn't make any sense to me.
When do you mind sharing with our guests? When did you find out you were conceived in rape? Can you tell that story before we lead
Yeah.
into where we're going today?
Sure, I was 18. I received non-identifying information from the court, and it had all kinds of details about my birth mother. But all it said from my biological father was that he was Caucasian and of large build. And of course, I thought that sounds like a police description. So I called my caseworker and I asked her, was my mom raped? And she told me, yeah. I didn't want to tell you. Of course, I was devastated at the time. I knew what people said about abortion in cases of rape, and I very much felt targeted and devalued. But then I met my birth mother when I was 19, and that's when she filled me in on all the horrific details. It was like one of those truly worst case scenarios.
Yeah. Why did she keep you? Why did she give birth to you and not abort you?
Well, she tried to. She went to two illegal abortions. She told me she absolutely would have aborted me if it had been legal in Michigan at the time. The back alley conditions and the fact that it was illegal are what caused her to back out. The first, there was blood dirt on the floor and on the tables. And the second, she was going to be blindfolded and taken somewhere at night. And if she was further along than thought, they'd have to keep her overnight. She was terrified for her own safety. And the Michigan law, 1931 law, still on the books here in Michigan, is what protected me.
And what
I
is that
literally
law? It
owe my
says that
birth.
you cannot abort a child past a certain time
It's
frame.
it's a complete abortion ban. So the original law in Michigan was at the founding of our nation, like 175 years ago. I'm sorry, founding of the state, and about 175 years ago, and it had no exceptions, but it talked about whether there was a quick fetus. So if the baby was moving, then there
Right.
was an abortion ban. And then in 1931, they passed the law that's a complete abortion ban, no exceptions. And that's the law that protected me.
Wow. That's fantastic. So your mother carried you to term and she knew right away that she would be giving you up for adoption?
Well, she had considered having her cousin adopt me. And then she decided that it would be too hard to keep me within the family.
Yeah. Wow. I commend her. I commend her for the decision, despite the fact that she would have had it. There was the Holy Spirit prompting in her to not do it,
Yeah.
so.
I mean, there's a lot of people that say, well, isn't it about your choice? At least your mother had the choice. I'm like, no, she didn't. And her choice was not to have me. I mean, when we met, I asked her about abortion, and she told me if it had been legal, she would have aborted me. And she said it should have been my right, and that she would abort me even if she had to do it all over again.
Wow.
And then 6 years later, she changed her mind, and now she's really thankful. But I mean, she was pro choice when we met, and that was rough.
Wow. For you, you mean it was rough for you to hear that she was pro-choice? That here's the woman who gave
And
birth
to
to you?
hear that if she had to do it all over again, she would go back and abort me.
It's
Like,
like looking at your face and saying, I wish you were dead.
yeah, yeah, it was horrifying.
Wow. Do you mind, before I ask about your wonderful parents, what changed her mind 6 years later and how did you find out?
My niece was in an unplanned pregnancy with her first great grandchild, and she has,
Your niece of your biological mother.
yes,
Okay.
my niece, my birth mother. This was her first great grandchild.
Okay.
So she has, and the reason why it was really significant to her is because she treasures these five generation photos that she has. That it was the fourth time in a row that that they had five generations of women alive, and my birth mother has all of these photos, and so it was like really meaningful to her
Wow.
to have the five generation photos of women in the family. And she would have missed out on that if that baby had been aborted. Interestingly, my cousin, adoptive cousin, aborted my adoptive grandmother's first great grandchild. And my adoptive grandmother had been pro life, always pro life. And
What
my
an
grandfather,
irony.
yeah, and my grandfather had wanted her to abort her daughter, my aunt, who's just one of her only two children. And she refused the abortion, spared the life of my aunt, and then in turn, her daughter sort of betrayed my grandmother by aborting her first great grandchild.
Wow.
So it's like really strange ironies.
It really is. And yet here you are, here you are. Um, and I'm jumping to what I ask you usually at the end of the show, but since I'm just feeling it now, what do you believe is your mission in life? The Lord made sure through all of that hard upbringing and all of these circumstances that here Rebecca Kiessling is alive, well, a mother of six, a lawyer saving lives. What is your mission?
Well, I cannot just sit here and say, like, oh, at least my life was spared. Like, I deserved it. Like, I'm special. I like somehow I deserved it more than others. I can't do that. Um, it's very humbling. I feel like my life was spared for a purpose, and that is to go back and save others. Um, I really don't feel like I can say that there's anything more special about me than there is than almost a million who are killed every year in the United States. And so I feel, such a privilege that I got to have life. And I tell people, look, I wasn't lucky, I was protected. Legality matters. And um, I hope everybody else could have that same sense of mission, that you just don't feel like, oh, at least I was wanted. At
Yeah.
least my mom was pro life. Like, and that's it. And because of my knowledge, I think I have more of an awareness of this privilege of what it means to have the opportunity to be born.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I feel um, I want to pay it forward to others.
Wow. So you are doing a fantastic job of paying it forward. And I've seen you for years fighting for the lives of the unborn and then some. So recently you were on a news show. Forgive me for forgetting the name of it. But you were defending the pro life views up And on the other side of the issue was a young woman, Jax Blackmore, who was defending the right to kill the child. And on live news, she actually took what she claimed to be was an abortifacient, a pill to abort the baby. She was claiming to be pregnant at that moment. And all of those who saw it live, and then again, like me, who saw it after it went recorded and viral, were just, I don't know if we were all devastated, but many of us were devastated that someone could go to such desperate measures to kill another human and try at least to celebrate that opportunity, though I think it was a failed attempt. Tell us about that day. You went on this show expecting to do what, and what did you face?
Uh, well, first of all, Jax Blackmore is not even her real name. She's apparently using a pseudonym. Normally, I Google my opposition when I go on that program. It's a political debate program on Fox 2 Detroit. It's called Let It Rip. I've been on numerous times, and most of the abortion lobby in our state won't debate me anymore. They won't go on the show with me because it doesn't
Can't fight
go
against
well for
truth?
them. Yeah, and it doesn't go well for them. So like the head of Planned Parenthood of Michigan, she won't debate me anymore. Um, and I usually Google them ahead of time, but it'd been a while, and we're usually in studio, and I just didn't end up doing it, and I should have because as soon as it ended, I sobbed. I just cried so hard. And then I Googled her, and that's when I saw that she's a satanic leader. She's the founder of the Satanic Temple of Detroit. She was kicked out a couple of years ago for,
Radical
um,
views.
yeah, she was doing a documentary called Hail Satan. And in this documentary, she was interviewed for it. They ended up cutting her part, but she had pigs' heads on stakes, and she was saying, we're going to disturb, disrupt, destroy. And she said that they're going to kidnap an executive and that they're going to flood the governor's mansion with snakes and that they're going to execute the president. And the Satanic Temple, like nationwide, globally, kicked her out because they said she doesn't represent their values. Like, wow, okay, she's too extreme for them. Um, but somehow she didn't land behind bars for threatening to kill the president because she explained it away that it was all theatrical and that she's a satanic artist. Well, so then what was this when she took this abortion pill on the air? The first of two pills she took, mifepristone, which deprives the child of it
The
blocks
nutrients. Yeah.
progesterone. Yeah, and that's just the first pill, and it's reversible, by the way. So I just want to put that
That's
out
news
there.
people don't want you to know because the first one just separates the child. Wait, what? The first pill does what? And the second pill expels the baby, right?
Right, right. I mean, I had low progesterone during my pregnancy with my youngest daughter, and it's completely scientific to rectify that situation when you have low progesterone to give a course of progesterone. That's the protocol for the abortion pill reversal. You can go to abortionpillreversal.com. But they don't, this doesn't fit their narrative. Women changing their mind. Oh, no, 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 no. They don't want you to have a choice at that point if you change your mind. No, there's no changing your mind. She acts like it's so simple. How about all the women who don't want to take the second pill now and their doctors are telling them they have to, and they won't tell them the truth that they can do a reversal. Um,
Well, it's just such a
so,
diabolical uh, something we have diabolical nature. I don't know what it is of our nation right now. I don't want to say nature because there are good people in our nature, but we got you. You want people to shout their abortions, excuse me, but you don't want them to know that they can change their mind. Free choice. You want abortion to be legal, except in cases of rape or incest, because the child's unwanted. Excuse me, but when we get a child like you who is wanted and you have a loving adoptive family, well, they don't want you to talk because somehow that makes you bad. So all of the arguments for someone who is, it's okay to celebrate being same sex attracted or trans, but when that trans child changes his or her mind, or adult, and wants to go back to their original gender, which not that they've ever changed, they want to demonize them. So that's it, it just kind of uncovers the agenda behind this, going, you don't really want people to have freedom of choice. You just want people to do these deadly, diabolical, hurtful, destructive things, and don't
Mhm.
ever change your mind back.
Yeah. Well, now, like, honestly, with the transgender thing, they'll just say, well, it's fluid and that's okay, that you can be fluid and you go in and out and change back and forth like a number of times. So there's that kind of mentality as well,
Right.
because there's too many people who are changing their mind that they can't deny it anymore. Um, Anyhow, by the way, I wasn't raised in an adoptive, loving family. They were actually abusive, but doesn't matter. I still value my life, and I'm really
Yeah.
thankful that I was born.
It's
And
probably,
I'm
I mean, it's sad that you were abused. So, yeah, thanks for correcting me on that. It is sad that you were abused, but you're right. No abuse makes someone's life less valuable. You can be unwanted by 100% of the people that walk the earth, but God wants you. It does not take your value away. So the fact that you have what appears to be good self-esteem, or at least self-worth, is just,
well, it's really Christ worth, like it's God esteem, not self esteem. Um,
I was actually going to go there. So I'm glad you said that. Talk to me about your faith. If you were raised as a Jewish child, how did you come to know the Lord, and did you value yourself in the image and likeness of God before you became a Christian? I mean, you find out at 18 that your mom was raped and she tried to abort you, and she still tells you that she wishes she had, and you're raised in an abusive house. You're 18, you're about to move out. I mean, most people would just crumble underneath that. Why didn't
mhm.
you?
Well, in many respects, I was crumbling. Um, I first came to know Christ when I was 15, and that was revolutionary for me, of course, because growing up, like, they didn't talk about Jesus like in my household. My parents didn't want to spoil Christmas for my friends, so they would just tell me that Santa didn't come to our house because we're Jewish. And so I thought, wow, it's true what they say. Like, even Santa was an anti-Semite. Like, he doesn't like Jewish kids. I mean, nobody explained it to me, and I thought, you'd see this picture of this like man hanging on a cross, like, and it was really graphic. And then there's this like Easter bunting, and that's like Easter was like all of this with like these like chocolate filled eggs and this man like all bloody on a cross. And then at Christmas, there's this like baby that looks to be in a very uncomfortable cradle surrounded by animals and palm trees. But then there's like
A
these other
tree and a
trees
Santa
with
Claus.
snow and Santa Claus, who's like this all knowing, omniscient gift giver from the sky. And I just thought, wow, this is one weird religion. Like I couldn't imagine how all of that fit together. Like it made no sense whatsoever. And it just seemed like kind of a lot of idolatry because no one ever shared their faith with
Right.
me. And
And
then
that's sad
when,
right there. 15 years, no
yeah,
one shared their faith. But we can move on from that.
no,
But all you Christians out
yeah,
there watching, learn from that.
yeah.
Let's start opening our mouths.
Yeah, I wasn't like within their mission field. It's like, gosh, you take your average heathen and they'll gladly share their faith. But, if somebody who's from another religion, it just seems to me like a lot of times people think that they're hands off, like, don't touch them, they already have a religion.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so I first came to believe when I was 15, fell away after a year, felt betrayed by my church friends, and then called back when I was in law school, when I was beat up by a boyfriend from law school. He broke my jaw, I lost my front tooth, I had really hit rock bottom. So I was not doing well when I learned how I was conceived. And um, I know now that, I was created by God in his image for a purpose. The rapist is not my creator, as some people would have me believe.
Right.
I'm not a child of rape, but a child of God and a child of a rape victim. And I have a worldview that tells me that God doesn't intend rape, he doesn't intend evil, but what man meant for evil, God can use for good.
Right.
And that's what he does. He takes the worst things that people do and he can turn it for good, like he did with Jesus dying on the cross.
Yeah.
Um, and he restores, he redeems situations. So that really helped me a lot and to know my worth and my identity. So I was rejected in Hebrew school by my classmates. I went to 5 years of Hebrew school, 3 days a week. I was bat mitzvahed, but I was raised by Jewish atheists, if that makes sense.
I think there's
Um,
secular Jews, right? Just Jewish in name,
yeah,
or yeah.
yeah. They lived as atheists, even though they sent me to Hebrew school because my grandfather was still alive. So my grandfather was religious, but not a good man. He beat my grandmother. My grandmother was an atheist, but she was pro-life. She's the one who taught me her pro-life values. And it was, she had wanted my aunt abort, or my grandfather had wanted my aunt to be aborted. And
His
when
daughter.
her daughter, yeah, yeah. And then when her daughter later had an abortion, my grandmother's first great grandchild was aborted. My grandmother was devastated. So she taught me her pro life values. Um, so it was kind of a crazy childhood, but when I was like not welcomed at events by the Jewish kids at my high school, I was like, I'm done with them. And I was like super glad to be going to church because like I was tired of being rejected by
Right.
my Jewish classmates. I didn't look Jewish. I had blonde hair, blue eyes, and I was called a bastard. I was told I wasn't really one of them. But, later I learned scripture, right? And I feel more like Ruth in the Bible, the story of Ruth in the Old Testament, where she says that your people will be my people and your God will be my God.
Yes.
Um, and St. Paul talks about that there's neither Jew nor Gentile any longer. Um, so yeah, that whole family tree that was really painful. Like with the family tree, like growing up Jewish, I knew I wasn't really one of them, and I wasn't one of God's chosen. But then I learned my biological family and my biological father's a rapist. My birth mother's grandfather raped her. So I have like rapists on both sides of my family
Oh.
tree genetically. Um, so it's like that didn't help. Uh,
Brokenness is everywhere, Rebecca.
yeah.
You can either be overcome by it or overcome it. And that is something you can only do with the grace of God. And so I'm listening to you thinking, you are the epitome of all the brokenness in the world, the rape, the abortion world, the abuse world. And yet, so you'd have been thrown away, the religious world there, right? The Jews, you'd have been thrown away by so many different groups, and yet none of that gives you value. And so again, I'm looking at you with awe, like God planted something amazing in you so that you could stand up and be this like fighting princess. Like, you aren't getting me down. I mean, do you ever feel like that? Because that's what you look like to me.
Uh, there's a lot of people that have like said like Esther, for such a time as this. And I
Yes.
do feel like my life was spared for a purpose, to go back and save others.
Yeah. Because had you been in Wisconsin or Illinois or any of the other states around you, likely the laws were different. So, yeah.
Well, actually, so the abortion laws began to change in 1967, and it started in the South and Colorado, and it was because of a concern about like biracial rape
Oh,
that they started adding the rape exception down south. And so that began in 1967, 68, and abortion was made legal in New York. But Michigan and many other states still had no abortion on the books in 1969.
when is the year you were born?
Yeah.
Thank God.
And she
Thank God.
sought to kill me in January of 1969. And I was born July 22nd, 1969. The trial date in Roe versus Wade was May 22nd, 1970, so 10 months later. And then the US Supreme Court decision was January 22nd, 1973, exactly 3.5 years after I was born, 4 years after my birth mother sought to abort me. So I just barely made it.
Wow, what a blessing. Well, well, so much I could talk to you about. So take us to one of the things I wanted to know when you were talking was, and I hope the answer is you can come up with the answer to this. But all that you have fought for, has any woman or child ever come, maybe even a dad or father, come up to you and said, because of you, because of your story, I'm alive, or I saved my child because of you? Because to me,
Yeah.
when you are feeling persecuted and beat down and uh, at every turn, you are just not given freedom to just move effortlessly with your message. It gets exhausting. So those kind of messages on occasion are like, thank you, God. Thank you. So have you ever had anyone come up to you and say, because of you, I'm here?
Yeah. And I've had babies named after me like around the world. There was a 15-year-old pregnant by rape in Africa, in Uganda. And then there was a woman in Argentina who, the crazy thing is, I had arrived in Malta. It was my second time speaking there. It was the middle of the night in Malta, and somehow, because I have a Spanish organization, my organization Save the One, our Spanish division is huge. We have over 100,000 followers on our Spanish page. And so this woman was looking up for help. She had taken the abortion pill, the first abortion pill in Argentina. And she was just trying to find an American pro-life leader who could help her find the guy who's behind, the doctor behind the
Reversal
abortion
pill.
pill reversal. And so I had never had direct contact with him before. She contacts me in the middle of the night through our Spanish page. And then I was able to get a hold of the doctor in the United States. So we're here, we have this international triangle, and he got her on the set up with the protocol for the abortion pill reversal, the progesterone and what have you. And she was able to get a doctor there connected to her doctor, and they did the protocol, and her baby was saved, and she named her baby after me.
Did you just break into tears? I mean, I don't know that anyone has ever been named after me. I mean, there's a human being here because you opened your mouth. Because you're not afraid of speaking truth despite all the sticks and stones and rejection and pain and abuse and name calling. That's a
Yeah.
mighty extra spirit of God in you. It really
And
is.
we all can have that opportunity if we just make ourselves available.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, the strange thing is, so I've been called all kinds of names. I've been called demon seed, evil seed, horrible reminder, monstrous child, rapist child, rape trophy. I've had people call me a rape apologist, and people tell me that if I had cared about my birth mother at all, I would have killed myself a long time ago. Um, but then I've also had women tell me that they were jealous that I was conceived in rape because I have such a sense of purpose and they don't know what their purpose in life is. Like, wow. Like, what a, and I've had several women say that to me, like, what a strange thing to say. Like, and how sad, like, people who felt like they had the perfect life and
Because they
they
have
just
no
have
purpose.
no idea what their purpose is. Like,
Mm.
they don't feel like they have a purpose. Like, that's really sad. Like, everybody has a purpose.
Just got to kind of keep going in the direction that you feel called, and then you'll figure it out. You know.
Yeah, and your gifts, the unique gifts that God has given you.
Well, one of the things that you and I had talked about earlier was actually people in, I mean, okay, so it was a law that saved your life. So we want to get pro-life politicians in there. And recently, some, I don't want to say congressman, but some political person insulted rape victims because there's a candidate, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a candidate running for election who is a child of rape who's been
Well,
mocked.
so
Correct me.
she has, yeah. But here in Michigan, we have a candidate for governor of Michigan who's been made of fun of. He's been made fun of nationally because he was in the interview where and I didn't find out about the whole interview until later. The interview starts where he says that he has a friend who was conceived in gang rape. They left that part out because they don't want to talk about real people because that's too compelling. But he went on to say that he thinks that women should be treated, as encouraged and treated as heroic, and that you never know, the child conceived in rape could be the next president. And that little statement
Snippet.
right there, it became headlines nationally. And I get Google alerts, so I saw all the different headlines. GOP candidate says child conceived rape could be next president, and they all said it in a different way, mocking that. Like they think that's really funny that somebody would suggest such a crazy thing that a child conceived in rape could be next president. Well, uh, Jesse Jackson was conceived in rape. He was 13. He ran for president. He had been outspokenly pro-life
Who is this? Jesse
until
Jackson?
Jesse Jackson was conceived in rape. Yes, the next door neighbor raped his mom. He was a man in his mid 30s, had raped his mom. And then his mother later married a man with the last name Jackson, and that man adopted him and raised him. And that's how he became Jesse Jackson. So yeah, he was conceived in rape, and then John Cox, who ran for president as a Republican, like I don't know, 8 years ago or something, but his he most recently ran for governor of California, and he was conceived in rape. And right now, there's a woman named Kathy Barnett, who used to be a Fox 2 commentator, who was conceived in rape, and she is running for US Senate in Pennsylvania, and she's currently running second for the Republican primary. Um, she could win, and she could be a senator for a couple of years, and run for president. She could be the
Right.
next president.
Right.
Why couldn't she be the next president? Why is that so funny?
It's just, we are such a darkened world, Rebecca. We are in such a, I can't even, we are darkened. We are upside down. We are confused. And I am grateful that you're out here trying to set things straight. If you could change anything right now, what would be like your biggest area of change? End Roe v. Wade? Because if we end Roe v. Wade, we still have all these states that are putting laws on. What would be, if you could make all the changes you wished, what would you have us do?
Well, okay, so as an attorney right now, I'm really thrilled about how things went with the heartbeat legislation passed in Texas.
Yes.
And so many states passed heartbeat laws without exceptions and complete abortion bans without exceptions, Mississippi and Kentucky and Ohio. Very disappointed that Georgia and South Carolina passed the heartbeat abortion ban with rape exceptions and fetal abnormality exceptions. That's just totally wrong. Texas passed the criminal one with no exceptions, and then they passed the civil ban. And so, what a civil ban means is that it authorizes a woman and others, the father of the child, her parents, to be able to sue an abortion clinic for the abortion. It's just tort reform. They made it a cause of action. And I've been saying this for years, that you can do that there's nothing to stop you from doing that. And that I think they would care more about getting sued and losing financially than the threat of jail. Because I always felt like we need to change the playing field. You can't just ban abortion and then have these illegal abortions where there's no, as long as you can keep it a secret,
Right.
there's no incentive for anyone to report it. But if you have a civil law and you do an abortion ban, now you have a financial incentive for the woman to turn on the abortionist. So as soon as she regrets her abortion, or if she doesn't regret her
Or
abortion,
if she felt she
she
was
can,
coerced into it, or if she didn't regret
sure,
it and she went in and they punctured
sure,
her uterus or something. No.
sure. But it gives her a financial incentive to sue for wrongful death. And I thought it was just a brilliant strategy. And I was so glad that Texas did that. Well, studies that was just passed in, I think, December, and studies have come out now. The abortion rate plummeted 60% in Texas.
That's fantastic.
60%.
So
So,
that's the combination of the heartbeat bill plus this civil law saying you can sue the abortionist together. Though that's your bill.
it's the heartbeat
So you would have
law.
all
Yeah.
states add a law like that on their books, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And right, and many are. I get Google alerts again, so I know Wisconsin just introduced this last week.
Which
A
makes me happy.
heartbeat.
That's my home state, and it's known. It's just been so liberal and so, and I'm like, let's just go to truth again. The truth, which is the value of the human life. I had a friend there actually one of my high school best friends who said to me, and she's obviously very much on the opposite political extreme from me now, and she's like, I can't believe you would want to make a woman keep a child she didn't want. She goes, now that it's legal, it's safe, clean, and safe, clean, and legal, I believe is what she said. And I was like, well, safe for who? And
Yeah.
first of all, it's not even safe for the women. It's definitely
No.
not safe for the child that's been murdered. But rare, the same rare thing. It's like it is anything but rare today when it's a
Right.
major component
And
of,
they changed it. They used to say safe, legal, and rare, and they
right.
don't say rare anymore. They don't want it to be rare.
No, they just want it legal. They don't even care if it's safe. They just want it legal.
Yeah.
And
Right. Because like you look at certain states where they don't even have healthcare professionals involved anymore. You don't even
right.
have to be a healthcare
You
professional.
can do it by Zoom. Go get your nurse to do it. I'll tell her what to do. It's not safe. It is not rare. It is only legal. And it is a money making entity. It is huge. And I am so glad that you're out there fighting in the way that you're fighting him. I do it like this by having guests like you on
Yeah.
my show. And I've prayed out in front of abortion clinic a couple times, not as many times as some of these fantastic activists we have. But really, I think we're in the same place, just trying to say all humans have value. All
Yeah.
humans, the ones that were born with one arm or no eyes or can't even speak, they have value.
Yeah. And in my organization, Save the One, the name comes from the parable of the lost sheep, where in context, Jesus says, see that you do not despise any of these little ones. And, what a strange thing to say. I mean, who would despise a little one? Well, you've heard the names that we're called, and children with special needs are systematically
Right.
targeted and despised. And he said, for I tell you, there are angels in heaven always look upon the face of my Father in heaven. And then he goes
Mm.
right into the parable of the lost sheep, where the good shepherd leaves the 99 to save the one. And he finishes the parable by explaining its point. And he says, for in the same way, your Father in heaven is not willing that any
Any should perish.
of these little ones should perish, and neither should we. So, in context, he was talking about the little ones who are despised, who are at risk of being killed. And he's not willing that any of them should be lost.
Wow.
And that should be our mission as well, to
Yes.
protect them.
So how do we do that? I mean, I've had, tons of pro-life speakers. Give us how do you think it's best that we can do that? Give us some action
Well,
steps.
yeah, so you have to know what your gifts are, what your calling is, what's available to you, opportunities. One path is not the same for everybody on this. So, some are the hands and some are the feet and so some ideas of opportunities to do this. You could be doing speaking like me or legal advocacy. Some of you might feel called to be an attorney or involved in some way with the court system, or as a legislator, or helping on a campaign to get pro-life candidates elected. You might want to be involved in a right to life organization or personhood, some sort of pro-life organization that does advocacy at the legislature. You can lobby, you can just send letters, emails to your legislators and personal phone calls to legislators asking them to support different bills that are pending in your state. Um, and then you could be doing speaking. You can get involved in your local pregnancy resource center, volunteering there, just helping out with the office, helping clean there. You can, um, if you're a nurse, you can help with the ultrasound program there, or some of them are doing STI testing. You can make baby clothes or donate baby clothes, donate diapers to your local pregnancy resource centers, any kind of baby item, find out what they need. You can make quilts. I make quilts for my local pregnancy resource centers and others where I travel around, or crochet, make a baby cap. And
Yes.
those items, oftentimes the baby caps are given to abortion minded women along with the ultrasound photo of their
The
baby.
baby.
And so having their baby and a baby cap, I've heard women say that knowing that somebody made that for my baby, like, really touched their hearts, and that they can now visualize their baby wearing that. It just helps make that child tangible, um, and touch their hearts, show that people care. You can also pray outside of abortion clinics. You can get sidewalk advocate counseling so that you could become a sidewalk advocate. You can get training for that, so you could be out there to help women change their mind about abortion when they're standing in front of the abortion clinics. Um, so
There's
there's,
just so much you can do. You either have
yeah,
time, talent, or money, or all
yes,
three.
you could be
Spend one
donating.
of
That's
those.
right.
Spend
Yeah.
one of those. I want to ask you
Oh, and
if
sharing stuff on social media. I mean, one of the ways that we've helped make a difference and change people's hearts and minds is because of people who share our things on social media. So, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, even LinkedIn. My organization is Save the One. That's number one, not the word one. And my name is Rebecca Kiessling, Kiessling. You can follow me and share my stuff. Um, so you can at least help spread the word, and that it helps, change hearts and minds, especially on the hard cases,
yeah,
so-called hard
share
cases.
this
Like,
show. Yeah.
yeah, and so it grows exponentially, right? When people share. And you know what it's like, because
I
if
do.
people didn't share your show, you know, you'd be talking
Yeah.
in the closet, right?
Right, right. I feel like asking you if you had a one-on-one with Jax Blackmore, just the two of you sitting on a couch talking, what would you say to her?
I mean, I would tell her about Sarah Winter from um, Brazil. She had been very much like Jax, where she would show up nude and, topless, and she'd write all over herself. I mean, Jax Blackmore's doing the same thing, holding weapons. Jax has this on Instagram. You can see she's got this following, this cult group she calls sex militants. And this woman, Sarah Winter, was very much like her. She founded the feminist group, the radical feminist group in Brazil. She's now pro-life, a pro-life activist, became a Christian, became a believer, and she's making a difference for good in this world. Um, so, I've kind of put that. I know a lot of her followers have come to my Facebook page, so I've been putting things out there like these kinds of stories and on Instagram. So you never know. I mean, they sit there and they all laugh, like her satanic following. laughs at the things I post, and then I end up blocking them. But they're seeing things and seeds are being planted.
Yeah, I recently did a show with Jesse Romero. This past weekend, there was a Satan Con in Scottsdale, Arizona, where Satan conventions are coming out in the public now, which is just so angering. But Zachary King, who is a former satanic high wizard who converted to Catholicism after having a miraculous moment with a miraculous medal, said, "Why are we surprised? I was telling people years ago, be careful. They're happening, and people are not in America." He says they are. He goes, "So now they're just out in the public." Anyway, so
Is he
Jesse
the
Rom,
one who's blind now?
yep, yes.
I've met him. I've met
Yes,
him.
he's
Yeah.
he's a fantastic spokesperson for the faith, and he just says this is the truth, and here's, you know,
Yeah.
but
And he said they did abortion rituals.
146 ritual abortions. If you guys are interested, go to my website, breakfastwithbacon.com, and you can watch that show. You can just Google it, on YouTube and listen to it as well. But let me tell you, you may not want to have your children around because I went really graphic and said, tell me, what does that look like? What does a ritual ceremony for abortion look like? And he told every detail. It was horrifying. So yeah, he said, of course it's going to be happening. But the point of me telling you this is when I did this show, I had some Christians post comments on it saying, "Good job, we're going to be praying outside." Because Jesse Romero was trying to get us to protest this prayerfully, prayer, fasting, rosaries, and be outside of this hotel that was sponsoring it. Anyway, don't get me started there, for those 3 days. And anyway, I had more Satan worshipers posting on my site than the Christians. And it's funny because they try to sound very intelligent and intellectual. Not that they're not intelligent or intellectual, but I could see through their words. Like, well, if you Christians would act like this, you're just so hateful that you want us to be. Just all these comments. And of course, other people would say, don't listen to them. And I'd make my posts about, yeah, no, I absolutely don't. I see their desperation and they're just so lost and sad and they want, and it would antagonize them. But I was like, I see through you. If you're worshiping Satan, it's because you've had a dark or a sad or a broken life. You've had
Hmm.
some trauma happen to you. Um, it doesn't have to stay that way. And so I think,
She claims that she's a non-theistic
yeah,
Satanist.
and they have
And
those.
and so a bunch of them do. They think they're not worshiping Satan, but we know in fact they are.
Right.
They really are.
Yeah, I learned a lot from my Zachary King interview that some Satanists are anti God, some believe in God, some don't, some are black mass Satanists, some of them are just abortion Satanists. And he said, yeah, I didn't really
Right,
take part.
right. And
So
they
it's
some of them
there.
just see Satan as being, the original rebel figure, and
Right, but
that
not
we're
a
not
real
really worshiping
person.
Satan. But you know what? You are though.
Yeah,
You think you're not. You can say that all day, but you really are.
yeah.
You just look at their behavior and
Uh, Rebecca, there's so much we could talk about. Is there anything that you want to get out that we haven't yet addressed? Because I could keep you on for hours and really help save lives with you. But what else would we want to make sure to get out before I ask you my last two questions?
I would love for people to share that abortionpillreversal.com website. Um, no, I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but because this video became so popular, especially amongst young women, and teenage girls, where she just takes the pill like it's nothing. I mean, they think that's it, that with a simple pill like that, you swallow some
Baby
water and then
disappears.
poof, yeah, baby just vanishes into thin air, and that's what abortion is. Like that's not what it is. And the
Yeah.
way I've described it, it's like somebody being filmed pushing a button for a drone strike. Look how easy it is. Look, a drone, you just push a button, there's a drone strike. That's poof. And the rest of us are horrified because we know
The
the
carnage down on the ground.
carnage. Yeah. And the
Yeah.
tragic loss of life. And so I want people to understand what happens after abortion. The movie Unplanned with
Unplanned.
Abby Johnson, you see she takes the second abortion pill, and she was a clinic director. for Planned Parenthood,
Award
and you
winning.
see how
Planned Parenthood gave her an award for being a
right,
great director.
right. One thing it doesn't show in the movie, it shows her, scooping up her baby after, having a horrific, abortion, right, in the bathroom all alone,
And her
screaming.
bedroom. I mean, she bled everywhere.
Yeah,
She had
yeah,
massive labor pains. So
yeah,
let's see the second part after you take these
right.
pills.
Right. But one of the things that's not in the movie that's in her book, and she talks about in her speeches, is that she had an infection after. And like many women, she did not go to the hospital and she could have died. She was septic, could have died. And then finally her mom told her, okay, you have to get treated, you're gonna die. Um, because there are women who, uh, not all of the baby passes, not all of the baby's parts pass, and then you can end up septic, get an infection, and die really quickly. And there's women who do die after taking the abortion pill. And a lot of women are ashamed that they did this, and they're afraid to go into the hospital, into the ER, and say, and they feel guilty, like this is my punishment for what I've done.
Yeah.
Um, I would, rather people know what things are really like and just never take the pill, so you don't have to worry about the abortion pill reversal. Just don't ever take it. But I think educating on abortion pill reversal and on the horror of what the whole aftermath is really like when you take the second pill, um, can help make a difference and help prevent it from happening in the first place.
One of the things that I watched Abby Johnson talk about your video with Jex, and one of the things she said was something that hadn't even crossed my mind. She said, in the end, after you go through that horrible scene of your body's convulsing, your uterus is convulsing, there's blood is all over, and you drop a baby onto a floor in a toilet. She said, you have to make a decision. See, the abortionists can, in this, they suck the baby out, and they have to be the devil dealing with this carnage. But when you do it yourself, you as a mother have to make a decision. Do I put my child down the toilet and flush? Do I put my baby in a bag and throw it in the garbage? I have to make the decision. How do I dispose of
Right.
this child that I'm holding and looking at,
Yeah.
arms and legs and feet? And I thought, I mean,
And
what?
I know women who are in post-abortive ministry to help post-abortive women, and they say, there's women who are trying to like sort of shove the baby's parts like down the drain or down their sink, or they're amazingly, there's a lot of women who freeze their baby because they see the baby, the humanity of the child, and now they just can't get rid of him or her. They can't bring themselves to just dispose of him or her, so they freeze their baby. And then they have the trauma
Gosh.
because a lot of women, for them, they can't go to the town where their abortion was because that's a trigger, or the date of their abortion is a trigger, or when they go down the street and they pass by this building, that's a trigger. Now the woman's bathroom
Is a
is the
trigger.
trigger in her own home. And she becomes her own abortionist. And now she's not just dealing, what was done to her, but really, really drives home more so what she's done.
Rebecca, thank you for fighting against the devil. I mean, you just do it until every ounce of strength is sucked out of you. Just keep fighting for their lives, because when you go to heaven, you will look upon the face of God, who will show you every single life that was saved because of your efforts. So when the days seem the darkest and your energy is drained and it just feels impossible, try to remember that vision of the Lord turning you around and showing you all those babies and women who you helped to save. So,
I hope they outlive me.
I hope they all do. I hope they all do. But
Yeah.
in heaven, when they're all in heaven, the
Yeah.
ones who were born and grew to 80 and 90 as well, and then went to heaven, that they were saved because of you. And the President of the United States, who was the victim of rape, who was saved because of you. I can't wait till the Lord shows you all of them one day. But so I have two last, they're not really questions. One of them is, but you kind of answered this already, but I'm asking you just to sum it up and name one thing you would have our listeners do differently as a result of something they heard today. You gave them a lot to do, but let's just one thing.
Um, Go visit your local pregnancy resource center. Bring some diapers.
Yeah. Excellent. And you can find them anywhere. Go to CPC, I think it's cpchelp.org, Crisis Pregnancy Center. Oh, why am I forgetting the website? I will post it underneath this video. I will also
Yeah, I
post
mean,
the.
if you just Google Pregnancy Resource Centers, Michigan or Wisconsin or whatever,
No, I'm going to
you'll
correct you on that. Google
really.
has been, I've had crisis pregnancy centers on my radio show, and when I've gone to Google them, they have changed their algorithms to either hide or delete them. They've put them to the bottom. I couldn't even, they had the first like 30 or 40 articles were how evil they were. So, no, you actually can't. They're getting so evil in the technology area that you have to
Um,
type in the exact address before
yeah.
you can.
So you can look up CareNet, Pregnancy
C
Resource
A R
Centers.
E
There,
C A R E
yeah.
N E T.
CareNet is a network of pregnancy centers, and so is Heartbeat International, and so
And
is
I think CPC Friends, Crisis Pregnancy Center Friends.org. I
okay.
know
There's
some good
like
posts.
Open Door, like women, like Open Door Pregnancy Resource Centers. There's a
I'll
bunch
put
of
several of
those.
them at the end of this show so they can click on various because again, that's what we're
Stanton
fighting.
is another one.
Yeah. Well, we're fighting Satan, so we're going to do our best. Rebecca and I will do our best to make sure you have access to these. So clicking directly on these links. One more thing. Fill in the blank. When I die, I will know my life has been a success if.
If those I love are there, when I get there,
That's it. When all the ones you love are there.
I lost 3 children. I just want to see them.
Well, I believe you will. No one can fight as hard as you for God's will and not get there. So I know your boys are waiting for you. I hope you
My
don't go too
baby girl
quickly.
and my baby Cassie. Caleb, Kyler, and Cassie.
Oh, God bless you, those three angels in heaven. Rebecca Kiessling, you have been a blessing to me. You've been a blessing to everyone watching and to so, so, so many more. And I pray that God will give you superhuman strength and wisdom to overcome all that you are facing, and that you do so and get to heaven and see those kids. To each and every one of you watching, I thank you. And as Rebecca said earlier, share this show. You never know who might be watching it that needed to see it. And maybe someone you didn't even know was pregnant. Maybe someone you didn't even know was raped. Maybe someone you didn't even know was facing some kind of trauma. Share the show and let them know that this isn't a show where there's judgment, but this is a show where there is love and we're trying to reach out with help. We want what's best for them. We're not trying to condemn and we're not trying to control. If you need help, if you forget, go to my website, breakfastwithbacon.com. This show will be listed there underneath this link here. You will see all these places you can go and get help as Rebecca listed them. So, and I do want to say to please subscribe to my newsletter because we are in the age of censorship and you aren't going to see my videos on this platform forever because they're already I don't know if I'm allowed to use the word censoring without that getting censored, but it's already been censored. So you aren't able to watch all of my shows on this platform. You'll have to go directly to my website. If you do that with all of those people who you trust, all those websites, all those news sources who you trust, you will still have access to them. And one day we won't have access to people's websites as well because it's starting to happen. So just wanted to put that out there. If you love Rebecca, if they want to subscribe to you, you have a blog, I believe, where if they want to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
So my website is RebeccaKiessling.com, and that's Kiessling. And my Facebook pages. I have my personal timeline as an open page. And then I have my Rebecca Kiessling ProLife speaker page. And then Save the One. And that's the number one, not the word one, SaveTheOne.com.
SaveThe and the number one.com.
Yeah.
Save the one.
And our blog, Save the One.
Excellent.
And then
Well,
Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn.
right, right. All of those.
Yeah.
Follow us any place you can. You've been such a blessing, and I don't know what else to say. Thank you. Just thank you. Thank you for saving the
Thank
lives of the
you.
people I love as well. Never know who it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
Well, God bless you. So I need to put these on here to say goodbye. But I am Dr. Christine Bacon, and you have been watching Breakfast with Bacon. And I would like to remind you always to live your life. Do you know how to end it? Sunny side up.
Sunny side up.